It's Zarek from Mill Chiropractic Dynamics, and tonight I'm delighted to be here with someone who, in the chiropractic world anyway, doesn't really need much of an introduction. This is Dr. Mo. Thank you for coming and joining us tonight.
Thanks, Zarek. Thanks for inviting me. Really interested to finally meet you and sit down and have a chat.
Great. We've encountered each other before. It was at the Axiom in the Netherlands, and I saw your presentation there, which I really liked. Didn't get to talking to you at the bar or anything like that, but I really liked the presentation, and delighted to get you on the podcast, especially during the current events. And I really like the stuff that you've been posting. You've been kind of guiding chiropractors to be able to say what we want to say, but just say it in a more constructed and intelligent way that's backed up by evidence. And I really like that, and that's why I wanted to get you to get you on here. So I'm sure that most of you that are listening to this, you've probably encountered Dr. Mo's stuff before. If you haven't, go and check it out, and I'll put the links below. But tonight, really, I just really want to jump right into it. A lot of these podcasts, they always go into like how did you get into chiropractic? Like, how did you get into what you're doing? I try and go straight to the meat, because most people listen to this, they already know who you are. Now, given the current circumstances that we're going through and going through the current events, we do throw around some claims which are warranted, but how I can understand how, from a non-chiropractic perspective, they might not make much sense. For example, people like you and I, being adjusted, it's just a normal thing that you do. It's just a way of life. You feel well, you get checked. If you're sick, you get adjusted. But for other people, when you say like, hey, whenever you're sick, you should get adjusted, it's going to help you. If they're non-chiropractic people, muggles, I call them, that seems like such a crazy statement. It seems insane. Whereas I like the perspective that you're coming from, where you actually can break it down and explain from a neurological standpoint how chiropractic can help with immunity. And that's the topic I kind of want to move around tonight, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. I would probably say right off the top that I'm not someone who says, if you're unwell, get checked. I'm someone who says everybody should get checked, because chiropractic helps the brain, the nervous system, the body function at its highest possible level. And so, I'm not someone who goes around touting the story that chiropractic is going to help you if you're sick. And nor do I think that should be the rallying cry of chiropractic.
You think sometimes we go too far into that? Like we'll say things that we can't really back up?
Definitely. But I mean, before we dive into that piece, I would just say that chiropractic, if we only tell people that they need a chiropractor if they're feeling sick or unwell, if there's a problem, then if you don't have a problem, you don't need chiropractic. I know you don't believe that, do you, Zarek? Right? Right. We should be getting checked frequently to make sure that there's no interference in the communication between the brain and the rest of our body. And so that's why I am not someone who's like, oh yeah, if you have an illness, that's when you really need it. When you really need it is when you're born with a brain and spinal cord, right? That everybody needs chiropractic. Now, this whole conversation around chiropractors making claims about the immune system, look, let's be real. There's certain things that you can say and that you can't say. And the problem arises when chiropractors say things like, come get your COVID adjustment, or that chiropractic boosts immunity, when that's really not the case.
But would you agree that sometimes we are saying that it will boost immunity, but it's more like, I think you should, if you are sick, you should get checked. You should for sure get checked. It's going to be beneficial for you. But then the problem is, for me, when you ask me why, I need something, I now need the tool to be able to back that claim up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let me tell you why saying chiropractic boosts immunity is wrong. Okay. And probably that's not what you're expecting to hear from me today. But Like as chiropractors, we don't have that kind of control over the innate intelligence of the body or over the nervous system for that matter. Here's the thing, right? What if somebody has low blood pressure? And this happens a lot where chiropractor says, oh, chiropractic adjustments lower blood pressure. This is a great example because if we go back to that upper cervical Dick Holt study that showed that people that had high blood pressure, when they received upper cervical care, it reduced their blood pressure. Fantastic. But what if you already have low blood pressure? Does that mean you should stay clear away from chiropractic, like stay away from it? No. And it's because we don't give the adjustment to increase or decrease anything. We give the adjustment to remove interference to the nervous system so that the brain and the nervous system can do the job of modulating, bringing the body back into homeostasis. We don't do it to turn something up or turn something down. We do it to bring it back into normalization. Well, I don't even like saying that. The purpose of chiropractic is to remove interference to the body's innate intelligence so that the body can function at its highest possible level. It's not to boost something or to decrease it. And that's why saying boosting immunity is wrong. I'm not saying that there isn't data to show improved function of the immune system, and we can break that down today. What I'm saying is it's wrong to say that we boost anything. Maybe we boost the innate intelligence ability to do its job. I don't know. We remove interference for the body to function at its highest possible level. That's what we do. We don't boost shit. Sorry. I don't know if we can swear on this.
Yeah, you can swear as much as you want. But surely removing the interference is going to help the immune system do what it needs to do. So okay, maybe inadvertently. It's the same thing as if someone comes to me and they have asthma and I just adjust them where I find the subluxation and the asthma clears up. I explain to them like, hey, we don't learn the special asthma adjustment in chiropractic college, but if you're subluxated and your rib mechanics are screwed up, it's going to be beneficial for you to be without that subluxation. So no, it doesn't cure asthma, but you surely have a better chance of not having asthma if you're not subluxated.
I think it's where we as chiropractors get in trouble when we make statements. Here's the thing. If you make the information you share too gray, then people are going to make assumptions.
Sure.
And here's my bottom line is that we cannot make causative statements from correlative data. There's something that I teach, I'm very specific about in my Dr. Mono's program. It's like, look, these are the things you can and cannot say. And here's why. I'm not just saying don't say it. You know, from a philosophical standpoint, I would say don't say we boost immunity because that's not what chiropractic does. Again, I'm going to keep harping on the idea that we're going to improve all function because we're removing any interference in that interconnectedness between the brain and every cell, organ, tissue in the body and back again. But we do not like it. You know what drives me crazy? People write to me all the time. They hear me talking about chiropractic immune system. They're like, what's the best adjustment? It's like the best adjustment is wherever there's a subluxation. There is no immune adjustment. And I'm sure people are going to be selling courses on this is the immune system series of adjustments you need to give. And I'm going to tell you that's bullshit because that's not how this works. It's not how this works. Yeah,
that makes sense. That brings back to the point before. It's like, hey, we don't have the special asthma adjustment the same way as we don't have the special COVID adjustment. From the stance of you're better off being checked if you're sick than not, in your opinion, you know, and we have, I don't know, like differing opinions. We have some conflict there, but in your opinion, what can we say?
Yeah, what we can say is that there is sufficient basic science and growing clinical science data that shows there's a relationship between the chiropractic adjustment and improved immune system function. Okay. So let me repeat that for everybody that's listening. We can say that there is sufficient basic science and growing clinical science data that show the chiropractic adjustment can have an impact on improving immune system function. That's about as clear as we can get. There's no COVID adjustment. We're not boosting immunity, but there is data that show, for example, that when you adjust somebody, you are creating positive changes in immune system biomarkers. And we have studies that show, there's the study with HIV patients that show improved CD4 biomarkers. We have studies showing improved interleukin 6 and C-reactive protein normalization in patients with low back pain. There's some data. Is there a massive amount of data? No, but there's enough for us to start to say there's a relationship, that you are better off with an adjustment than without one, right? That you're better off not having interference in your brain's ability to communicate with your body than having it, right? Is anybody ever going to argue that it's better to have a subluxation than not? Absolutely not. Right. And I think that's where we're failing as chiropractors. That's where we get most of the criticism we get, is because we go out there and make claims that, oh, if you have asthma and get adjustment, it's going to be better. Don't say that.
Right.
Even if all we started to do was focus on the fact that you're better off not having interference in your body's master control system than you are, then that's a good place to start. That, when we have more and more science showing that the subluxation helps the body, all systems of the body, function better, period, just like that. And then let the nerds argue about the details.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Myself being a nerd.
It makes sense. Do you count yourself as a nerd?
100%. I mean, maybe a cool nerd, but like, what science is sexy, right? It's something I say all the time. Science is sexy, and it's not God either, right? Like, science is not the be all and end all, but right now it's the conversation that we're having that matters. And now let's not pretend that, it's not corruptible either at any point. Like, I'm glad I'm arguing this side because I'm passionate about it. And it's what, for me, the chiropractic principles are essential to our growth and to the growth of humanity. But like, at any time you could take one scientific article that says something and find something that says the opposite. Anytime. It all exists. And so it's an imperfect language that we're currently using that's accepted by the greater masses. And that's why I'm using it to share my message.
So to summarize what you said, it's not so much you're saying you can't say that. It's we have the same message, but your way of communicating it needs to be refined, because what you're saying, if someone outside who hasn't been in our world hears that, it sounds crazy. So you need to say the same message, but you need to say it in a different way.
Yeah, it's not just that it sounds crazy, Zarek. It actually is incorrect by today's standards in logic and science. Like, it's better for us as a profession if we don't say and do things that reflects poorly on everybody else. So by saying, you're not doing a disservice by not saying it boosts immunity. People are like, well, shouldn't we be able to say? You should be able to say what is factual. What is factual is this: chiropractic, when applied appropriately, can actually, now I'm being paranoid about the use of my words. This is what the science tells me, that chiropractic can actually have a positive impact on the immune system function. Period. You can say chiropractic has a positive effect on immune system function. That I believe you can say. I think it's not just erroneous, but it can be hurtful for chiropractors to go out and say that it boosts immunity. And I'll tell you right now, I'm in Canada, and in Canada and the United States, I have chiropractors reaching out to me all the time because they are getting fined, or their license is at risk from their licensing bodies because they say things like that. And in fact, here, I'm in British Columbia in Canada. Now the licensing body is so strict here that you cannot even mention immune system on your website. So they're handcuffing chiropractors. And it's because people are saying statements that are not factual. And we can argue what's fact and what's truth, and from a philosophical perspective, till the cows come home. But right now, my biggest concern is keeping chiropractors out of trouble. And how do we do that? Is by making sure that the messaging is on point. And so like we just did last weekend, I taught a Dr. Monod's class that was all about chiropractic and the immune system. And it was breaking down all of the details. I always joke about putting the crumbs really close together, right? in a way that the chiropractor can understand, so that if they're sharing the message, they know what they're talking about.
Okay.
We reviewed, I think we talked about 20, I think I included about 24 different research articles in the class that day. Now, we didn't get into the nitty gritty of all of them, but it was about making sure that whatever narrative you're sharing is on point, so that you can withstand scrutiny and criticism.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. So that when the medical doctor comes to your practice to get adjusted and you're saying these things, that you have something that you can back it up. I think to me that makes sense. I'm curious to know, because with what you're talking about, what we're saying and what we're putting on our websites and getting into trouble that way, it's one thing putting something on your website or saying something on Facebook or putting up a testimonial that says, I can fix this. It's another thing when it's the communication with the patient. And as you know, in practice, you need to be able to communicate with different types of people. So I need to be able to explain how chiropractic's role in your health to the builder that left school when he was 15, but I also have to be able to explain it to the PhD neuroscientist. Could you talk a little bit about that and how in your practice you can explain it to someone that doesn't know anything about the body and about chiropractic versus someone who's from that medical standpoint?
Yeah. First of all, just a caveat, I would say that it is as important to communicate it to your patients in a factual way in your office as it is to communicate it on your website. Because, and Matt McCoy over at the Foundation for Vertebral Subluxation has recently exposed some instances where literally people are targeting chiropractors and going in and recording them in their offices to get them. Okay, so let's be
I never
real.
heard about that.
We need to be mindful all the time, right? For me, the integrity piece is really important. So always your languaging should be on point, not just in public, but all the time, right?
What I meant by
how do I
that
explain?
wasn't that it doesn't count when you're speaking to them. I meant when you put it online, it's documented. Whereas when it's verbal, it's a bit less informal. That's what I meant by that. But
I totally get what you mean, and let's break that down. I just wanted to make sure this is how important messaging is. I wanted to reiterate what you had just said in a way. I don't want anybody to construe what I'm saying here, right? Like, it's really important that we're always on point. And so to your point about what do you say to the builder that left school at 15 versus the PhD in neuroscience, you're right. We have to be able to communicate differently. And that some of that goes beyond understanding the science to just being an effective communicator, which I think, people talk about the art of chiropractic being just the adjustment. I think that the art has many facets, and one of which is the ability to effectively communicate is essential to your success as a chiropractor. So, but I digress. How do I talk about chiropractic to the builder versus the PhD? So the builder who left school at 15 is going to hear that I often use questions to engage people. Bob, what controls your body? Maybe Bob knows, maybe Bob doesn't. Most people know that their brain controls everything. And if they don't, I would say, your brain sitting up here controls every cell, organ, and tissue in your body. And your brain has this tail, a spinal cord that's encased in these 24 movable bones. And the only way the message can get to and from your brain is through your spine. And anytime any of those bones are out of alignment, and hopefully you have a model nearby and you can show them, that interrupts that message. Bob, do you think that's good or bad?
sure,
It's that simple. It's that simple. Now, you want to talk about the PhD in neuroscience, then I would say, Dominic, here's what we know. And that is that when you adjust the spine, you actually
Dominic
change.
sounds so middle class.
Maybe from a Northern Ireland perspective. Okay, Simon, this is what happens when we adjust the spine. Now, as you know, the brain controls every cell, organ, and tissue in your body. Now, these 24 movable segments here, they're kind of like the gateways to and from your brain. And what we've learned from our basic science and clinical science research is that when you adjust the spine, you actually create changes in the brain. And we know that from PET scans, from fMRI, from all sorts of different studies, and you might even name some of them, that you actually create changes in somatosensory evoked potentials, in glucose metabolism. And then he might be like, oh, wow, that's cool. Or she, tell me more or not. For me, most common messaging, whether it's Bob the builder or Simon the engineer, is when you adjust the spine, you change the brain. And when you change someone's brain, you change their life. I mean, that's my mantra. And then let's see if they ask you questions, right? It's no sense talking at people like, well, do you have any questions about that? Do you understand that? What, let me fill the gaps for you. And that's when your skill as a communicator and teacher really comes to play.
Cool. And then so that's more like what we do as chiropractors that you're explaining to the people. If those same people come in and they're asking the same question, but with the role towards immunity. Hey, I saw a chiropractor online that said that if I'm getting adjusted, I have better chances of fighting COVID, for example.
Yeah.
Those two patients, then what would you go into?
I would almost say the same thing. Well, you know what, Bob and Simone, here's what we know. We know we have some basic science and clinical science research that shows us that when you have a chiropractic adjustment, it can actually improve function of the immune system. That's what we know. That's what I would say. And that'd be the same either way.
Yeah.
And, how do we deflect claims? How do we, deal with the pestering medical doctor aunt at the dinner party who says chiropractors are full of shit and they're saying that chiropractic boosts immunity and you can't say that. And you could say, well, you know what, actually I agree, because I don't think that chiropractic boosts anything. And what we do by removing interference in the communication between the brain and every cell, organ, and tissue in your body is give it the best chance at functioning optimally. Argue against that. And you can go right back to the conversation and talk about the actual anatomy and how that plays a role in physiology.
Yeah. See, I think with what you're saying,
better to keep it simple.
I agree with you up until the point where you're saying like I'm looking at it a different way. Like if I don't boost your immune system by adjusting you, but when I clear the nervous system, that will boost your immune system. So it's not me that's doing it, it's your system that's doing it.
I wouldn't use the word boost. It's actually what's creating the most trouble right now. I wouldn't say boost. Why couldn't you just say improves function?
Well, yeah.
It's you know what I mean? Like what we know this is what we know is that people that have been under chiropractic care, even as little as one adjustment shows improvement in immune system biomarkers. It shows changes. Now, let me be really honest. Those changes are open to interpretation. And depending on what side of the argument you fall, you might say, well, look, there's positive changes in biomarkers or changes in biomarkers that show a positive function of the immune system. And people on the other side of that argument are going to say, look, immune system biomarkers are still really gray. And in some instances, there's a point where it stops being anti-inflammatory and becomes pro-inflammatory. Well, at some point, pro-inflammation is desirable and anti-inflammation is undesirable. Look, it depends on your side of the argument. And my point is this: have enough science behind whatever argument you're making to support it. And then say it using logic and the most evidence-informed, not evidence-based, evidence-informed approach as possible, because that's a different thing, right? You can say that you can share your passion, you can share the truth without saying things that are going to get you in trouble. And so saying chiropractic boosts immunity is not the right thing to say. Not yet, not right now. And in fact, it's my belief from my philosophical understanding of how chiropractic and the innate intelligence and the nervous system works is that we're not looking to boost anything. We're looking to remove interference to the innate intelligence ability to run the show.
Okay. So if I clear the nerve interference, it doesn't boost your immune system, but having that greater neural integrity will give your immune system a better chance should COVID enter your body. That's okay.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. Do you think if there is any interference between the message between your brain and the rest of your body, is that good or bad? Bob, the builder, is going to say, that sounds bad to me. Well, your brain controls every cell, organ, and tissue in your body, every system in your body, including the immune system. Now, we have science that shows us that the sympathetic nervous system drives all these lymphoid organs in the body. How can, people like the WFC come out and say that the nervous system doesn't impact the immune system? Is like, it's not only crazy, it's not only wrong, I think it's harmful, not just to chiropractic, but to humanity, to those people that might get under chiropractic care, who might see improved function of their body, their nervous system, their immune system with the chiropractic adjustment. They're taking that away. I think there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of ego that's driving the argument against it. And there's a lot of erroneous misinformation, inappropriate sharing, inappropriate lexicon being used by chiropractors that actually are making it worse. So how do we construct a narrative that's evidence informed, that is not going to get us in trouble? And
Right.
Unfortunately, now we're at the point where some licensing bodies and boards are just like, they don't care. It's like, no, you just can't talk about it. And so we're fighting an uphill battle in some places. And that's not endemic to me here in British Columbia. It's happening all over the United States and other countries too, Australia, certainly Europe. We are fighting an uphill battle in chiropractic.
So it's kind of, it's almost as if you have the camp where chiropractic is put in this box where it's like, we only have the evidence for musculoskeletal problems, and that's our box, and that's where we stay in. And then over here you have the other box, which is chiropractic is going to cure you of any disease known to man. If you get COVID and you get adjusted, you're going to be healed. If you have cancer and you get adjusted, you're going to be healed. If you have AIDS and you get adjusted, you're going to be healed. Whereas you're kind of like, you're not in either of those boxes, but you're in the middle, and you're like, hey, some of what you're saying is true, but you need to word it in a completely different way and back up what you're saying.
Yeah.
So that when you come into contact with these people, that you don't sound silly.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's those chiropractors on the purely mechanistic end who actually only talk about musculoskeletal. They don't even talk about neuromusculoskeletal anymore. They're saying that their evidence points to a musculoskeletal only impact for chiropractic. I mean, that hurts my soul. Now there's chiropractors on the other side who are the holy rollers, who are like, the power that made the body heals the body, and that's it. Nothing matters. And that hurts my brain. So like, there's a problem on both sides. And I'm not saying that I'm not a fence sitter. I don't sit on the fence. What I'm doing is I'm taking the science of today, because that's the language that the greater population is using, and I'm pairing that with my philosophical understanding of chiropractic and what the purpose of chiropractic is, combining that with my experience as a practitioner of 10 plus years, and then taking what is my patient's desire, right? That's evidence informed. And my mission through my programs like Dr. Mono's and through the Prana Foundation is to share the message with as many people as possible, chiropractor and lay person alike, in a way that is incontrovertible, in a way that nobody can say, well, you're wrong, or that you can say that that's not true. I want to share it in a way that you can't, not that it's not challengeable. I love being challenged, but I'm always going to be like, well, you know what? Here you go. Yeah, that's what I'm about.
That's the thing. It's never going to hurt you to be able to back that up in that conversation. I had this, I think it was a couple of episodes ago on the podcast, where I was explaining how I really want to know more about the neurology behind the adjustment and the whole issue. I don't want to jump into the whole vaccines thing in this podcast, because it's just, I don't want to get into it.
Yeah,
but it's that thing where I'm like, do you want to have the vaccine? No. Why? And then people will come out with all these conspiracy theories, and they'll be like, well, like Bill Gates is trying to put a microchip in my brain, and he's going to turn me into an antenna, and then he's going to be able to control me. And now you just sound loopy. But now I kind of feel like I don't want to have the vaccine, but I don't want to sound loopy either. Like, I want to be able to back up why I don't have it. And that's kind of where I'm going in this direction now, because I want to be able to say, okay, chiropractic is going to help you with your immune system, not boost immunity, as you say. And I'm going to be able to back that up by saying X, Y, Z. I don't want to have the vaccine because X, Y, Z. And it's not just making these bold
You could
claims
say
and then
this is
having
what you
nothing to
could.
back it up.
Yeah, I think you could very simply handle the vaccine issue just by saying that there's not enough data at this point, that generally vaccines have years and years of clinical research that's done. And it's just, there's not enough time, and I'm not willing to have, you know, foreign genetic material injected into my body because we have no idea the impact that it might have on me and have on my family for generations to come. It's that, for me, it's that simple. You don't get, and we can take a purely political stance and be like, well, you know, here in Canada, for example, we have a very socialist approach, and it's like, it's for the greater good. Well, then, you know, I'm going to oppose based on this scientific, my understanding of how the body works. And there's not enough time and energy put into understanding that, aside from what my political and personal beliefs are, which, you know, yeah, you're not putting that crap in me.
Yeah. But then if you could say something to the chiropractors who kind of share the same views as you, but want to be able to explain it better. So I don't want to have the vaccine. I just don't know how to explain that as well as I should. Or I do think that if I have COVID, an adjustment is going to be better than not being adjusted. But then when someone says why, it's hard to be able to explain that. Where is
Yeah.
where should we start with that? Where can we go to be able to get the language that we need?
So, I mean, that's a really contentious point, Zarek, because in fact, in Canada, for example, chiropractors are forbidden from talking about that vaccine altogether.
Mm.
I mean, you could, I know there's a woman that lost her license because she talked about it.
Wow.
So, you know, can you direct people to learn more? As always, it's like, you know, be as educated as you possibly can when it comes to making decisions about your health and your body. Always, if people directly say to you, as a, you know, why aren't you getting it? You know, and there, I see chiropractors on posting, getting the injection on, you know, social media channels. And, you know, we probably run a risk of this episode being censored or somehow, you know, not being aired because we're having this conversation about, they're going to say, oh, there's anti-vaccine information in this conversation. And I'll say, like, I'm not, and I'm posted about this last month. I'm not against vaccines. I'm for vaccine literacy. And I very clearly outline what's required for that.
I know the post you're talking about. I really like that post. It was well written.
Yeah, and that's the angle I would even take with my patients as a chiropractor. Now, you know, there are people who, like, they're rallying, you know, strongly against vaccinations. And I don't know, maybe I guess I am more middle of the road. That my mandate, my personal mission is always about educating people to make the most educated, responsible choices for them. Am I going to have a vaccination? No. If you want to ask me personally why, then I'm going to say that the science is not there to back it up. And in fact, there's sufficient data to show that it can be incredibly harmful. You know, the most recent data coming out from the vaccine adverse event reporting system from the WHO show, you know, almost 8,000 people last count died from having that there were adverse events from the vaccine. So, you know, there's not enough data for me to get injected. I mean, I don't jump out of planes either. So I don't know, maybe.
And it
I don't know.
upsets
I
me
wouldn't say I'm risk
when you
averse.
can't even talk about it. You can't even have a conversation. Whenever I was a CA, I'll not go into too much detail of it. But whenever I was a CA, the chiropractor got into a little bit of bother because it was an open plan room, and a patient said, "Hey, you know, what about the vaccines? Blah blah blah." All the chiropractor said is, she said, well, you know, there's evidence for and there's evidence against. What I would encourage you to do is go and do your own research and make your own decision. And if you need me to point you in the direction of where you can get that information, I'm happy to do that. But it's not my decision to make for you. You need to make that decision yourself, which is a very neutral,
Exactly.
very logical, very intelligent way
Yep.
of doing it. What happened was there was a patient in the waiting room, it's open plan, so the waiting room is the adjusting room essentially, who heard that
Yep.
and then was a pharmaceutical rep or some shit, and then went back and said, oh, she said XYZ. I had to speak to the solicitors. I had to say, no, that's not what was going on. That's not what was said. when it gets to the point where we can't even fucking talk and share, that's what this podcast is. It's like, I want to bring you on and share some stuff and say, like, okay, you might have a different viewpoint, but this is where, when we can't even do that, like, what even is the point?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm probably going to get flack from both sides now. I'm going to get flack from the strongly anti-vaccine side to say you weren't strong enough against vaccines. I'm going to get flack from the other side saying you can't make those statements. And all I'm saying is exactly what you said, is make an educated decision. My educated decision at this point is that there's not enough science to support the use of the vaccines and sufficient that I would have it. And I'm not going to recommend it to other people. Like, that's where I'm at. That's my personal opinion. I generally don't talk about vaccines because I also don't want to limit people's exposure to me. I have a mission. My mission is to shift the narrative in chiropractic to where it belongs, which is that we are the impact, the greatest impact the chiropractor has is on the neurological system. That when you adjust the spine, you change the brain. When you change the brain, you change somebody's life. That's enough reason to have chiropractic. And if I talk about vaccines, my exposure is limited. I'm not interested in getting banned on social media, which is one of the mediums that I use to share the message. You know, this week that I dropped that video just a few days ago, offering my free course, right, to any student, any chiropractic college, anywhere. The response is incredible, right? Look, the fact that a college banned me from being able to talk to their students about the neurology of subluxation is absurd. Breaks my heart. Now, almost 2,000 chiropractic students around the world have registered for that course so far in like 3 days.
Yeah.
I want everybody to have it. I have schools reaching out to me from all over the world. The school in South Africa has reached out to say, you know, can we create a series of lectures for our students? I would love to be in as many schools as possible teaching neurology, the neurology of chiropractic, the science of chiropractic from a philosophical standpoint.
Sure.
They are not mutually exclusive. You can believe. You can, you know, have one foot in science and one foot in philosophy and still maintain integrity. And I do that every single day. And I want to teach every chiropractor how they can too.
That's great. And thank you for doing that. I really like how it backfired on the school, because you wanted to give a speech to, I don't know how many students, less than 100. And now that same message is going to go out to 2,000 because they wanted to censor you. And we could talk for another hour on that, like on censorship. I think I want to speak to people who have conflicting opinions, whether it's on what is a subluxation, what sort of technique should we be using, COVID, vaccines, whatever it is. I want to hear different opinions and then draw my own conclusions from that. And probably some of the students that you're going to talk to, they're not going to agree with you, and that's okay. But at least they heard the message, and some of them are going to agree with you, and you draw your own conclusions from it. And I think if we spoke about this before we hit record, but I haven't been banned from any schools yet. But if I finish my career and I haven't been banned from any of the schools, for me, that I'll consider that a great failure. I'll be disgusted with myself if I'm on my deathbed and I haven't been banned from any of the schools. So you've ticked that box.
I ticked the box. It's more than one school too. And it's funny because I was talking to Billy D of CalJam this week and Liam Schubel, and they're both like, oh yeah, if you haven't been banned, you're not doing your job. And I think, you know, people like Reggie Gold would say the same thing. It just, what hurts is this, you know, it's this political way that the schools have. And it's been like it all the time. They've been doing it forever. I went to Palmer Davenport in the late 90s. And when I first started there, people were banned too, you know, and it was only after Guy Reekman became president there that the school opened up again. You know, when I first started, Reggie was banned and then he wasn't. You know, am I surprised I've been prevented from speaking at a school? Well, I think the tides are changing a little bit because, you know, it wasn't a philosophical discussion I was going in to give. I wasn't going in to talk about green books. I was going in to talk about neurology of subluxation. Now, is it the word subluxation that, you know, they didn't like? Is it, you know, the fact that I have been on the board of the IFCO, that I taught at another chiropractic college? Is it my haircut? I don't know what the hell it is. I don't know, because they wouldn't tell me why they wouldn't let me speak. In fact, there was no formal communication from the school itself. It was just through the student that actually they've declined your application to speak. And the students, it was a science evening they were having. I had to fill out a big speaker's application. It was sent back. They need more details. And I went in, I'm like, I'm going to be talking an evidence-informed approach about the 4 top neurological models of subluxation. That's heavy science, right? No. And we're not going to tell you why. I'm like, okay. And then I was so upset, not for me personally, but for the students. And I finally thought, screw this, I'm just going to make it available to everybody for free. I mean, it was free anyway, but this way, you know, now everybody gets it.
Yeah, and I saw that, and that's why I wanted to get you on as well. And actually, I've been sent that link a couple of times this week, and I've been tagged in it and such. Like, it's going to blow up. You're going to get a lot of people seeing that. And I got a message from Donald. He sent me the link, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to have her on the podcast tomorrow." And he said to give a shout out to his Wisdom of 33 book, which we are both features in. So there's a book coming out. It's called The Wisdom of 33, and it's 33 different chiropractors who each have a different chapter in it. So we're both featured in that. That should be coming out in the next couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to reading.
I'm excited for that. My chapter in that is on chiropractic and consciousness.
Consciousness.
Yep.
Can you elaborate, or is that to be continued?
No, I can elaborate. So when you look at the areas of the brain that are impacted by the chiropractic adjustment, they're the exact same areas where current science tells us that consciousness resides. And there are a lot of different studies that look at, so for example, meditating monks, and where is compassion in the brain? Where is gratitude in the brain? And it's those same areas: medial prefrontal cortex, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, anterior, why I'm having a brain fart. Anyway, the ACC, where those are the same areas they believe consciousness resides. And here's the thing, right? We always talk about uniting the physical and spiritual in chiropractic. And if we're impacting the brain in the areas that are responsible for consciousness, wow, are we elevating the consciousness of humanity as chiropractors? I would say yes. Are we boosting consciousness? No.
Okay, I understand.
Is that a good analogy?
What you're saying makes sense. It's like you agree with what they're saying. You're saying just you need to word this a different way, but you're not going against the message, you know?
No, and my point is this, right? If we use inappropriate language, if we use language that is, you know, it's just not factual, it's not supported by the science, it just makes us sound like, you know, I think chiropractors are, it's like, we're not educated. Well, holy crap, actually, like I was in school till I was 33. Chiropractors go to school for quite a long time. I think maybe they should go to school for a bit longer. That's a story for another day. But, you know, let's not be afraid to use our brains as well as our hearts and our hands. That's something that we say in our foundation all the time, which is, you know, head, heart, and hands. They're not exclusive. You can use your brain as well as your hands, as well as your heart and your passion. But passion by itself, ineffectual. Passion and, you know, we can use our educated and our intuition at the same time. And I think that's even more powerful, to just be smart about what you say and how you say it. And it keeps not just you out of trouble, it keeps the whole profession out of trouble. That's what I think.
Well, you know, maybe we can take the chapter and we can send it to the school that told you not to come. We can say, hey, you know, like, we can back this up. Maybe if you get adjusted, you'll be less of a prick. And we'll back it up by evidence. Here it is.
Get adjusted. Yeah. Probably those people don't even get adjusted, right? If it's only for musculoskeletal problems, that means if you don't have a musculoskeletal problem, you don't need chiropractic.
Yeah, what's the point? Yeah, lie down, face down.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. That was a little bit scattered. We went from the neurology to the whole vaccine censorship debate, and then on to consciousness. But it was interesting nonetheless. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about this stuff, and talk a little bit about your course?
Yeah, so people can find me. They can find me at my website, drmoniqueandrews.com. But right now, my passion is this course that I offer called Dr. Mo Knows, DRMO Knows, and .com. And basically, what we do is we meet every month and we break down hot topics in chiropractic science. And we do a 2-hour class. Some of it's presentation. There's lots of Q&A. It's not just like reading articles and learning about science. And while we do a little bit of that, I have a really unique style in how I present, but we spend a good chunk of that time actually interacting and talking about how do we communicate it? Just like we talked today, how do I talk to my patients about this? What can and what can't I say? And again, my mission through that course, drmonos.com, is really about shifting the narrative and elevating the chiropractor's ability to communicate what it is that we do in an educated, passionate, kind way. So that's the two big ways. And also my wife, Dr. Tamara McIntyre, and I, who's a genius. What I do in the science world, she does in the clinical world. We started a foundation, the Prana Foundation.org. And basically that's a community that is has a wealth of resources. We run retreats in Costa Rica and really provide a community for doctors, like-minded docs who want a safe space to manifest an incredible life. So that's the pranafoundation.org. Check that out. We have a private Facebook community you can join as well.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up at that. Dr. Mo, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.